If you're thinking about moving to Italy and you're in your 30s or even in your 40s, this video is for you. I made the move to Italy when I was 34 years old, and I'm sitting here now at 41, and I can honestly tell you that at whatever age you move here, it will be a very transformative experience. But there's something about being in your 30s or 40s that feels a little bit different, I think, because when you move here in your 20s, you have the sense of adventure and, it's an experiment in a way. When you move here for retirement, you've got a lot of life experience behind you and you kind of know what you want. But this kind of age period, I think, can be a little bit tricky. So I really do think you have to think things through very carefully and consider many different aspects. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. No sugarcoating, just the truth as you need to hear it, so that if you're thinking of moving to this country in this age bracket, you can make a success of your experience. I'm a big believer in the theory that nothing is ever too late, but you do have to accept that things can be different. When you're moving abroad in your 20s, it's a wild adventure, but when you are moving in your 30s or 40s, it's really more of a conscious reinvention. You're not just escaping something, you're seeking something deeper. Maybe it's a slower life, maybe it's having more meaning in your life, or maybe it's simply a change that aligns with the person that you have become. But your challenges living in Italy will also look different too. Maybe you're not as flexible with chaos as you may have been when you were younger. You might be leaving behind older parents or family members, or even walking away from a long career. And let's be honest, starting over is a little harder on the ego when you're not 25. But here's what's also true. In your 30s and 40s, you have some life experience behind you. And so you move to Italy with grit, with determination, and with focus. And let me tell you, those skills will serve you beautifully living here in Italy. So if this is something that you're really serious about doing, I've got 5 questions that I think you need to ask yourself before making this move. The first question is, what am I moving toward? Not just what am I moving away from. This is really, really important because it gives you a sense of perspective about what it is that you expect your life in Italy to look like. This is the point where you have to be really realistic about your expectations, and you have to also understand the period of life that you're in. Now, I have to be honest, I've never felt my age. I sit here now and I say I'm 41, but it sounds like it's somebody else saying this. But many people, even Italians living here, deem 41 to be middle-aged or, in inverted commas, older. But I think it is all a mindset and mentality. You are the age that you feel you are, and it shows in every kind of aspect of your character and the way that you carry yourself. But I will say that if you are moving in this period of your life, you do have to think about what it is that you are moving towards, the kind of life that you are going to be building for yourself here, and what your life is going to look like. And you also have to understand a few things from a cultural perspective as well. Many people in this age bracket here in Italy have settled down, are starting a family or have already started a family, getting married. It's this kind of settlement period for many people living here in Italy. So you have to consider this as well. If you are moving here single as well, these are things that you need to think about because your situation might look very different to somebody who is Italian, for example. But by having the foresight to understand what your life could potentially look like here in Italy will give you that grounding, and it's not going to be as much of a culture shock when you actually do start living in this country if you have done the preparation before. And this means that you have to do some reflective work within yourself about the kind of life that you want for yourself here in Italy, but you've also got to do some realistic research. You've got to watch videos about people who are actually explaining to you what life is like here, and you have to understand exactly what it is that you are letting yourself in for. The second question is, what does my daily life look like in Italy? Really? Again, another fundamental question that I think anybody at any age needs to ask themselves, but especially when you are in this particular age bracket, because you see, you're not retired, so you don't have the flexibility to spend your days exactly as you please. You're not in your 20s where you can like go out drinking every night and, treat it like a party experience. You're in your 30s and 40s where things are a little bit more serious. Maybe you are still going to be working here. Maybe you have responsibilities. I don't know. But it's a particular age bracket where you need to be more considerate as to what your life is going to look like. You need to be thinking about your work situation, how you're going to financially support yourself here, what it's going to be like on a day-to-day basis in terms of building connections and meeting people of a similar age and, maybe in a similar position even through expat communities. But this is where you've got to spend some time. You've really got to understand exactly what your life is going to look like every single day. It doesn't have to be accurate. Things can change. You might end up living a life completely different to the one that you had planned for. But the point is you are putting thought and consideration into this process. People do think about this, but they don't often spend enough time reflecting on it. And I think it's one of the most important things, because if you honestly sit down with yourself and you are not sure what your everyday life would look like or what you're going to be doing with yourself in this country, I think you need to get that a bit clearer before you actually make the move, because it's going to be very difficult for you to integrate into life here and to feel happy about the experience if you don't have a sense of purpose when you start living here. The third question that you need to ask yourself is, do I thrive with uncertainty and slower systems? I really think life here in Italy is not for everyone, particularly here in the south, because things do not work as they are meant to half of the time. And processes and systems can be that little bit slower. Now, when you're in this kind of age bracket, especially, things like bureaucracy and processes like this, you may already have become accustomed to them being dealt with in a particular way in your existing country. So to come here, you have to start to adopt patience and flexibility, and you need to be willing to go with the flow a lot more than perhaps what you might be used to currently. It's a really, really testing process living here in Italy. And I do think even in the north of Italy, people can come across frustrating situations to do with bureaucracy or whatever it may be. But you need to be willing to adapt and to change. And the reason why I say in this particular age bracket is because when you're in your 30s or 40s, I kind of feel like you've established a set of habits, a set of routines, and you've identified yourself more as a person. Like, I think in your 20s, you are still exploring and kind of discovering who you are. But when you're in your 30s and 40s, that picture tends to become a bit clearer. And so you know what you want from your life most of the time, and you know a bit more about the kind of person you are, which is why you need to be sure that you are willing to change, because this is life here in Italy. It requires that of you sometimes, that you have to be able to adapt and change to situations. But you've also got to be willing to accept things for what they are and not to make the comparison between Italy and the country that you're currently living in, which is what a lot of people that move here do. And it's what creates a lot of miserable expats and people who live in this country, because they cannot seem to let go of this comparison. So this is a very important question. Are you willing to adjust to what life is going to be like here in Italy without trying to retain the life that you currently have in your own country? Fourth question is, have I created a financial cushion or flexible income stream? Really, really important, especially in this age bracket, because, you're at this point in your life where you're fully independent. So, your parents are not there to help you in the same way they may have helped you when you were younger. Usually you're working at this point, but you need to be thinking very seriously about your finances. If you plan to work in Italy, I have to be honest with you, get ready for a pay cut, because salaries here, especially in the south, are very, very low. And, it's probably not going to reflect what you're currently earning. Everything is relative. Prices of everything, rent, food, all the kinds of everyday expenses that you have to consider. So, it is relative, but it is going to mean that you have to get used to lower salaries if you're going to be working here. But also you want to have some kind of nest egg to fall back on, because essentially you're in a different country. You need to be able to prepare for any kind of unexpected expenses. And it's this essentially. So you've got to start thinking seriously about your finances. Do you have some savings that you can move here with? Are you able to start working here? Are you able to retain the job that you have and work on a remote basis? These are the kind of serious questions you've got to be asking yourself so that you can be sure that you can financially support yourself living in this country. And the fifth question is, am I ready to be a beginner again with language, culture, and friendships? This is fundamental because you are literally starting your life over. And as exciting as it sounds on the one hand, it's also really bloody difficult on the other. And I think sometimes we get too lost in the excitement and the romanticism of the experience without focusing on what's on the other side. But you need to focus on what's on the other side because it's not easy to start your life over again. It's not easy to make friends again, particularly when you're in this age bracket. Because as I've spoken about in other videos, at this point in an Italian person's life, they have their friendship circle set. A lot of friendships began when they were at school, and a lot of them are maintained throughout their entire life. And so it's very difficult to break into those friendship circles, particularly if you don't have the ability to meet new people frequently. For example, if you're working from home or you do not work in an office, for example, it can be difficult to form those connections when you're not seeing the same people every single day. So you've really got to think about this. It's really not easy, and it requires you to put the work in. So you have to ask yourself if you are willing to go back to being a beginner again, to put in the work in, to make those connections, to form friendships, and to slowly but surely start to integrate yourself into life here. And of course, with the language, this takes commitment, it takes consistency, and it takes dedication. You've got to put the effort into learning the language. It's not going to come easy, particularly if the last time you picked up a study book was when you were back at university or college or school. So you've really, really got to be honest with yourself. You've got to open yourself up to a whole new way of life, a whole different culture, a whole new set of experiences, and you've got to be prepared to work, to put the effort in to start your life from scratch. Is it worth it? Absolutely. But is it hard? Yes. So put the work in, start doing it from now in as many ways as you can. I've always said it's never too early to start language learning. It's never too early to start connecting with expats through online expat communities. But begin the journey of doing so as soon as you can, and really accept the fact that it's not going to be easy at the beginning, but it will be absolutely worthwhile at the end. These questions are so important to ask yourself because you see, once the honeymoon phase ends, that kind of dreamy romantic period when you've just made the move and everything feels fresh and exciting, you're going to need some solid answers to all of the questions that you've just asked yourself to fall back on when things start to become difficult, because you will encounter many real life challenges living here in Italy. Here's the unsexy truth that nobody will tell you. Italian bureaucracy will test your patience. The healthcare system here is different, and you'll need to plan for it, particularly if you have to pay for the healthcare system if you're not able to access it for free because you're not working in this country, for example. Making new friends as an adult, it's possible, but it takes time. It's slow here. And you might feel invisible at times, out of place, especially if you're single or you don't speak the language yet. But you're not alone. Lots of people move here in this particular age group and make a success of themselves. And that's what you need to keep in mind at all times. It is an experience that I think is incredibly worthwhile. And I think there are so many beautiful things that come on the back of it. The pace of life here in Italy lets you breathe. Meals are sacred, rest is normal, and this is something that can be very different depending on what country you're coming from. You're surrounded by beauty every single day, even on the hardest of days. And most importantly, you rediscover yourself. You rewrite who you are in the best possible way. You realize it's not too late to create a life that feels like you. If you're in your 30s and 40s and you want to move here to Italy, I say, listen, don't romanticize, prepare. Bring your strength, your patience, your sense of humor, but get ready to adapt and change a little bit more to the way of life here in Italy. If this video resonated with you, why not consider subscribing to this channel, giving it a thumbs up, and even commenting below if you are planning to move to Italy. in this age bracket especially, what are some of the concerns that you have about your life here in Italy? Pop your comments below and I may well do a future video about them. And if you're interested in exploring Italy even more, this is the video I think you should watch next. I'll see you in the next video.